My sister vanished without a trace 15 years ago, leaving me with her 2 toddlers and no explanation. I never heard from her again, until last week. A letter arrived in my mailbox, handwritten and venomous. "You stole them." I laughed at first, but then came the phone calls, the threats, the reporters on my lawn. She's back, and she wants them, my kids. Or so I thought, because the deeper I dig, the more I realize. Maybe the real question isn't why she left, but who she really was before she did. It was a Saturday morning, and the kitchen smelled like cinnamon pancakes and maple syrup. I held up my phone, camera angled just right to catch the chaos behind me. Jacob tossing blueberries at Mia, who squealed with laughter and ducked under the kitchen island. 15 years, I said into the lens. 15 years of being a mom I never signed up to be, and somehow I still can't make them eat their fruit. I chuckled as the live chat filled with hearts and comments. "You're such an amazing mom. This is so wholesome. Single moms like you deserve the world." Mia ran up and hugged my waist, sticky fingers and all. "Mommy, Jacob put blueberries in the syrup again." "Did not," Jacob shouted from the hallway. "Mommy?" I looked down at her, smiling gently, though something in me tightened. She'd been calling me that more often lately. I never corrected her, not once, but I never encouraged it either. I panned the camera to the living room where photo frames lined the mantel. First day of school, camping trips, birthdays, Christmas mornings with wrapping paper chaos. 15 years, 15 Christmases without her. I ended the stream, letting the screen go black. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at my reflection in the blank phone screen. My smile was still there, but my eyes weren't smiling back. That night, as I cleaned out Mia's backpack, I found a folded piece of paper tucked between her spelling test and a crumpled granola bar wrapper. No name, no return address. Just 6 words, scratched in black ink. "You stole everything from me." I froze. My heart skipped, then pounded. I flipped the envelope over. Nothing. No postage stamp, no address. It hadn't come through the mail. Someone had placed it there. Someone who had access to my daughter. I looked over at Mia, curled on the couch watching cartoons, laughing like the world was still soft and safe. I didn't say a word. The next morning, red paint greeted me across the front of the garage. Liar. Bright. Thick strokes. Sloppy but deliberate. I stood there barefoot in the driveway, the cold seeping into my heels. The neighbors peeked through curtains but said nothing. I painted over it before the kids woke up. I told myself it was a prank, some stupid kid, some mistake. But the camera by the front door, my only proof, was dead. The footage wiped. Someone had hacked the system. Whoever they were precise. I called the security company. They couldn't explain it. 3 nights later, my email was flooded with anonymous messages. "You can't hide forever." "Thief." They were never yours. My chest tightened. For the first time in years, I locked my bedroom door. I started digging, pulled out every adoption paper, legal document, medical record from the past decade and a half. Everything in order. Everything signed, except there was no formal adoption. No finalized custody. Only temporary guardianship, extended repeatedly until no one remembered it wasn't permanent. I never thought she'd come back. I never thought she'd want them. She left without a word. One day she was there, the next she was gone. No goodbye, no instructions, no calls, no postcards. Just vanished. I told myself she was dead. It was easier that way. That night, Mia came into my room after midnight. Her eyes were wet, voice shaking. "Mom." "Yeah, sweetie?" I sat up quickly, worried. She hesitated, lower lip trembling. She called me. My blood turned to ice. "Who did?" My other mom. She said her name was Lana." I couldn't breathe. "She said you took me from her." I pulled her close, heart racing. I wanted to tell her it was a lie, that she was wrong, but all I could do was hold her and whisper, "You're safe. You're okay. I've got you." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure if it was true anymore. I didn't recognize her at first. She stood on the porch in a faded denim jacket, hair tangled and eyes too wide. She looked like a ghost of someone I used to know, someone sharper, someone magnetic, someone who once knew how to own a room. Now she looked like she hadn't slept in days, yet her spine was straight, her jaw set. "I want my children back," she said. I didn't say anything, just stared at her, my fingers tightening on the door frame. I wasn't prepared, no letter, no lawyer. She just appeared, as if 15 years hadn't passed. "They're mine, Emma," she added, her voice cold. "And you knew this day would come." It wasn't a conversation. It was a declaration. By the time I called the police, she was gone, but not before Mia saw her standing there. Not before Jacob peeked through the window and whispered, "Is that—" I didn't answer. The next day, I received a formal notice from a family law attorney. Lana had filed for full custody of both kids. She claimed abandonment, theft, emotional manipulation. The media came soon after. A local tabloid ran a piece. "Missing mom returns after 15 years, demands her children back." The narrative was clear. I was the villain, the jealous sister who'd stolen children she couldn't have, and Lana was the broken mother who'd finally come home. My inbox exploded with hate mail. "You're disgusting. You brainwashed them. You should rot." Calls came from social services, then from the kids' school. The principal asked that I keep them home for a while, for their safety. I tried to stay calm. I tried to remind myself of what was real. I had raised them. I had fed them, bathed them, stayed up all night through fevers and nightmares. I had signed every permission slip, held every scraped knee, clapped at every recital. That was real. But when Mia came back from a supervised visit with Lana, she wouldn't look at me. She walked past me into her room and shut the door. At dinner, she said she wasn't hungry. When I asked if she wanted to talk, she whispered, "She said you kept me from her, that you lied." It wasn't just words. It was a fracture, a clean break in something I thought unshakable. Jacob heard the whole thing. His fork clinked against his plate. He didn't eat either. Later that night, I found him in the hallway, fists clenched. "She's lying, right?" he asked. "She didn't just forget us, right?" I nodded. "She left, and she stayed gone. That's not your fault. That's not Mia's fault. That's hers." But I could see it in his eyes. He didn't know what to believe anymore. And then the video leaked. An old recording, maybe 8 years ago. Me, speaking to a friend during a backyard BBQ. Someone had filmed it without me noticing. "I never made it official," I said in the clip, laughing nervously. "Guess I always thought she'd come back one day." The internet did the rest. Comments flooded in. "She admitted it! She never had custody!" "This is kidnapping!" The truth had become irrelevant. It was about perception now. The poison kept spreading. Lana opened a public Instagram account. "I Mother Lost Now Found." It gained 10,000 followers in 4 days. Her first post was a picture of Mia as a toddler, one I had taken, captioned, "She was stolen from me, but I never stopped loving her." She shared stories, photos, half-truths wrapped in tragic hashtags. People reposted, influencers reshared. Then the harassment started. At Jacob's school, a boy cornered him in the hallway. "My mom says you don't belong here," he spat. "Your real mom's back and you're still living with the thief." Jacob got into a fight, came home with a busted lip and tear-streaked cheeks. He wouldn't speak to me that night, just sat in his room, headphones on, staring at nothing. I sat outside his door and cried. Everything was unraveling, fast. I could feel it slipping through my fingers, my identity, my credibility, my children. And still, I refused to break. I started documenting. I printed every hateful comment, every news article, every message Lana posted. I created a timeline of the past 15 years, every doctor's visit, every school record, every birthday card. I knew it wouldn't fix perception, but maybe, just maybe, it would hold up in court. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. During a meeting with my attorney, Rachel, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who'd been guiding me through the legal minefield, we received a copy of Lana's legal team's motion, and there, under the signature line, was the name of her counsel, Ryan Keller. I stared at it. My lungs emptied. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was my ex. The man I had loved once, trusted, even thought I'd marry. We hadn't spoken in a decade. He'd left me after I took the kids in, said it was too much baggage. Now he was representing Lana? Rachel narrowed her eyes. You know him? I nodded slowly. He knows everything. And in that moment I understood. This wasn't just about custody, it was personal. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not physically, but in the way eyes settled on me like I didn't belong there, as if I'd walked into someone else's tragedy wearing the wrong shoes. Lana sat at the plaintiff's table in a muted gray dress, hair styled neatly for the first time in weeks. She looked fragile, composed, the image of a mother who had suffered and was now fighting to reclaim what had been stolen. Ryan sat beside her, whispering in her ear, nodding like this was all just business. It wasn't. I watched as the judge sifted through papers, then paused. Ryan stood. Your Honor, before we proceed, I'd like to submit newly obtained evidence regarding Ms. Emma Carter's mental health history. I blinked. What? He handed over a document. The judge scanned it, frowning. This report claims the respondent, Ms. Carter, was treated for major depressive disorder with risk factors for self-harm and refused medication. That's not true, I whispered, but my voice barely reached anyone beyond my table. The judge looked at me. Ms. Carter, were you or were you not hospitalized for psychiatric evaluation in 2011? No, I stopped. I saw a therapist after my father died. It was grief counseling, not this. Ryan's voice was silk. And did you ever tell your therapist you had thoughts of running away, of giving up? I may have said I felt overwhelmed, but I never hurt myself. Yet there is no formal documentation of your discharge, only notes from a therapist, no psychiatrist, no second opinion. The words started blurring together. I couldn't think. My throat tightened. Then came the witnesses. My aunt, my cousin, even my own mother, all called by Lana's team. All said the same thing. I had always been the shy one, the fragile one. Lana, though troubled, had been vibrant, maternal. She'd lost her way, but deep down, she was just a mother trying to come home. She's not the villain here, my mother said, glancing at me. She's their real mother. I stopped breathing. Just for a second. The judge called a recess. My attorney leaned in. I'm sorry, Emma, this is worse than we expected. Am I losing them? For now. The court is ordering a temporary no contact with Mia until further psychological evaluation. The floor tilted under me. I gripped the table. No contact? Mia was everything. She was the reason I got up in the morning, the reason I hadn't crumbled when Lana disappeared. And now I wasn't allowed to even see her face? As I stumbled out of the courtroom, Jacob caught my hand. I don't want to go with her, he whispered. You won't, I said. I promise. But my voice trembled. That night, I found a folded note on my pillow, Mia's handwriting. Dear Emma, I know you're not my real mom, but that was all. No signature, no continuation. Just a sentence left dangling like a question I couldn't answer. I stared at it for an hour, rereading the words. I know you're not my real mom. But what? But I love you anyway? But I hate you now? But I wish you hadn't lied? I didn't know. And that not knowing tore at me harder than anything else. 2 days later, another letter arrived, this time from Lana's lawyer. I was being sued for emotional abuse and intentional infliction of psychological harm. The claim was that I'd deliberately manipulated the children to hate their biological mother, that I'd gaslit them into forgetting their past. My body shut down. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, numb. I didn't answer calls, didn't eat, I couldn't. At some point, I found the bottle of sleeping pills in my nightstand, prescribed years ago after a particularly rough winter. I hadn't touched them in ages. That night, I took too many. The next thing I remember was the sound of Jacob screaming. The room spun. I couldn't move my arms. The light was too bright. Someone was shaking me, crying. Mom, please, wake up! Voices, sirens, then blackness. When I woke up in the hospital, Jacob was asleep in the chair beside me, arms crossed, face pale and tense. The nurse said he'd refused to leave, that he'd called 911 after I didn't respond to his knocks. But it wasn't just that. He had live streamed. From my bedroom. In real time. Pleading into the camera. My mom isn't okay. She's the only person who's ever been there for me and my sister. I need help. Someone please help us. The video had gone viral overnight. Hundreds of thousands of views. Thousands of comments. Some still hateful. But others were different. People were sharing stories about how they'd grown up with relatives instead of parents, how they'd been told to forget the ones who actually raised them, how the legal system didn't always protect love, just paperwork. My inbox, once a wall of fire, was now a mix of flames and hands reaching out. That's when I saw the message. No subject line, no name, just a DM request on an old, barely used account. I clicked. I lived with Lana years ago before she vanished. You don't know what she's capable of, but I do. And I think it's time someone told you the rest. The message came with no warning, no introduction, just a voice memo and the line, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I hesitated before pressing play. The voice was female, early 30s, anxious. She sold her first baby. Lana sold him. I was there. It was a mess. Drugs, debt. She needed quick cash. No one talks about it because she disappeared right after. But the baby, he was real. I froze. She went on, describing a small apartment, a screaming infant, a shady man with cash. I didn't know what shook me more, the claim itself or how easily I believed it. That night, I pulled out every medical record I had. Discharge summaries, pediatric records, immunization forms. I laid them out across the floor like pieces to a puzzle I didn't know was broken. Something didn't sit right. Mia and Jacob were listed with different birth dates. Not unusual, they weren't twins. But the gap was just 14 months. That in itself wasn't alarming. What was alarming was that Lana had only ever shown me one pregnancy ultrasound. One baby. One due date. One memory she cried about. So, where did the second baby come from? I dug deeper, called the hospital under a pretext, requested old documentation. Most had been scanned digitally, but there were gaps, missing nurse logs, unsigned transfer records. The paper trail was thin, but one thing stood out. Lana had been admitted under 2 different names, twice. Different years, different doctors. One of the names had been flagged for fraud in the system. I clicked, and it opened a scanned copy of a check-in form with a note scribbled in the margin. Patient provided no ID. And just like that, the ground beneath me shifted again. The next morning, I went into Mia's room while she was at school and found her toothbrush. I wrapped it carefully and labeled it with just her initials. I did the same for Jacob. Then I drove across town to a lab that didn't ask many questions and paid in cash. They told me it would take 72 hours. In the meantime, I watched the video Jacob had posted again. His eyes were raw, voice trembling, but his words clear. She's not perfect, but she never left us. Never. The video had racked up over 2 million views. The tide was turning. People were tagging me in posts of support. Soccer Emma Deserves Justice started trending. Offers from independent lawyers, therapists, even former Child Protective Services workers poured in. One woman emailed me daily just to say, "We believe you." Still, Mia remained quiet. Her school had ordered counseling, and I was no longer allowed to attend sessions. But Jacob told me something strange one night while we were washing dishes. She said she remembers a freezer. I turned to him. "What?" She told a teacher. Said she remembers being put in a freezer when she was little. Not like closed in, just hiding. But it was cold. She was scared. And Lana wasn't there. I dropped the plate I was holding. Memories don't lie. Not the ones that come that young, buried deep in the body's fear. Lana had always said Mia was born in spring. But this memory, cold, enclosed, terrified, was something else entirely. It didn't fit. I went to the courthouse the next morning to request Mia's original birth certificate. I expected bureaucracy, delays, excuses. What I didn't expect was the woman behind the glass pausing as she looked at the screen, frowning. "There's no mother listed on file," she said. I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "I mean, the certificate was amended. The original name field is blank. The printed version has a mother's name, but it was added later." My heart pounded. "Who added it?" She hesitated. "It's redacted, sealed, but the request was filed by an attorney, over 10 years ago." "Do you have the name?" She nodded, writing it down on a post-it. When I looked, my stomach turned to stone. Ryan Keller. The courtroom was packed for the final hearing. News vans lined the street, and metal detectors buzzed nonstop as people filed in. I wore navy blue and no makeup. I wanted them to see my face. Tired, raw, real. When I took the stand, I didn't flinch. I laid out everything. The voicemail, the fraudulent documents, the DNA results that proved Mia and Jacob weren't biologically related, the birth certificate with the redacted maternal name, every receipt, every appointment, every timestamp. I handed the judge a timeline so meticulous, even Ryan's expression began to falter. Then I dropped the bombshell, the hospital footage. I had filed a public records request weeks earlier, and after 3 separate denials, finally secured a grainy video from a security camera dated 13 years ago. The footage showed a woman, frail, scared, clutching a bundled infant, walking into the ER. It wasn't Lana. It was someone else. Same height, same dark hair. But not Lana. And certainly not someone confident enough to lie her way into full custody. The judge leaned forward. "Can this woman be identified?" "Yes," I said. "Her name is Elise Carver. She came forward last week after seeing Jacob's live stream. She says she was forced to give up her daughter under pressure. She was promised it was only temporary. Lana handled everything, including the payoff." Gasps echoed through the room. Lana didn't deny it. She didn't speak at all. Just stared blankly ahead, knuckles white. The judge called for a recess to verify Elise's claims and cross-check the hospital files. Court was to resume the next morning. But I didn't show up, not because I'd given up, but because I had something more important to do. I took Jacob and Mia and drove 3 hours north to a cabin a friend had loaned me. No cell reception, no press, no noise. We sat in the living room by the fire, and I told them everything, every lie, every truth I'd learned, every reason why I stayed silent for so long, how I wasn't sure Mia was ever meant to be with Lana, how Jacob had been abandoned the same way, just less dramatically, and how none of it had anything to do with them not being enough. Mia didn't cry. She just asked one question. Was I wanted? I nodded, my voice breaking. Every single day. Jacob placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're my sister. That's never changing." The next morning, we returned. The courtroom was quiet when we walked in. Lana glanced up, her eyes wild, but it was Mia who broke the silence. She walked to the front, stood beside the judge, and asked if she could speak. He nodded. She turned to face everyone, reporters, relatives, strangers. "I know who gave birth to me, but that's not the same as being my mom. Emma never left me. She never hurt me. She was there when I had the flu, when I broke my arm, when I couldn't sleep. She didn't steal me. She saved me, and I choose her." The room held its breath. The judge leaned back slowly, then turned to Lana. "Given the overwhelming evidence of fraud, emotional endangerment, and prior mental health concerns, I'm terminating your parental rights, effective immediately. You are to undergo psychiatric evaluation and treatment under supervision." Lana's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her body sagged as 2 officers escorted her from the room. Ryan didn't move. Later that week, it was announced that Ryan Keller was under investigation for unauthorized alterations of legal documents, misuse of client records, and conflict of interest. His license was suspended pending review. My mother tried to call. I didn't answer. My uncle sent a letter. I was wrong. I see that now. I saved it, but I haven't replied. Some family members denied everything. Others apologized, publicly and privately. It didn't matter anymore. because I had my kids, and this time no one was taking them. Online, the tide shifted for good. Justice for Emma hit trending within hours. Strangers sent flowers. A crowdfunding page for legal fees raised over $30,000 in a weekend. But I didn't want fame. I wanted peace. And finally, it felt like I had it. I titled the book Stolen Twice because that's exactly what happened. First, I lost them to silence. Then, nearly again, to lies. But in the space between, I found something more enduring than biology. Choice. And that choice was mine, and later, theirs. To stay, to fight, to believe. The book wasn't written out of vengeance. It wasn't a takedown or a courtroom memoir. It was a story of surviving, of rebuilding what was shattered and making something stronger. I wrote it late at night, long after Jacob had gone to bed, while Mia did homework at the kitchen table. I rewrote every chapter until the pain felt like history instead of an open wound. By the time it was published, I didn't expect much. A few online readers maybe, a quiet ripple. But it spread, quietly, powerfully. Readers from all over sent letters. Women who'd raised nieces, aunts who'd become mothers overnight, foster parents who had no legal title but infinite love. They said Stolen Twice gave them language for what they'd endured. And more importantly, validation. With the book came invitations, podcasts, panels, then funding. That's how Phoenix Circle was born, a center for guardians like me, those caught between the cracks of law and love. We offered therapy, legal aid, and peer support. A safe haven for complicated families, the kind built through fire and choice, not blood. Jacob was the first to suggest we expand. There are kids who need to tell their side, too, he said. It's not just the adults getting hurt. He began speaking at schools, youth centers, even conferences. At 15, he stood in front of hundreds of strangers and said, "I used to think love was something you had to earn, but I learned that real love doesn't leave. It stays. Even when it's hard." He got a standing ovation. Mia took longer. The trauma ran deeper with her. For weeks after the trial, she would wake up crying, sometimes screaming. Elise, the woman who'd given birth to her, reached out, carefully, respectfully. She didn't want to intrude, only to offer truth. At first, Mia refused. Then, one Sunday, she asked if we could meet her. I drove them to a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Elise waited on the patio, hands folded, eyes wide with nervousness. She didn't hug Mia, she didn't cry. She simply said, "Hi." Mia nodded. "Hi." They talked for 2 hours. When we got back to the car, Mia looked at me. "She's not what I thought." "No," I said. "She's not. She's kind, but I don't know her." "You don't have to choose," I told her. "Not between us. That's the difference." She stared out the window, then whispered, "I still choose you." That night, I slept better than I had in years. Lana vanished. No court follow-up, no appeals, no new addresses. But one envelope came in the mail 6 months later. No return address, no name. Inside was a single note, handwritten. "I'm sorry, not for leaving, but for not knowing how to stay." I didn't show the kids. I burned the letter in the fireplace and watched the smoke disappear. As for me, I made one final change. I reclaimed my name, Emma Whitaker, my grandmother's name, the one who taught me to bake, to stand up straight, to speak when it matters. I let go of the Carter name. It no longer fit who I'd become. I wasn't just the girl who got left behind. I was the woman who stayed and who saved. One evening, months later, we sat on the porch of our new house. Small, quiet, full of light. The sun melted into the horizon, painting the sky in fire and gold. Jacob was strumming a guitar softly, humming something under his breath. Mia leaned against my shoulder, eyes half closed. She turned to me and whispered, "Mom, are we okay now?" I smiled, eyes burning with gentle heat. We're finally home. And for the first time in years, I didn't just believe it. I knew it.